Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you're returning, thank you as always for being here. Super excited. I've got some spring inspired DIYs, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting.
DIY number 1. All right, these are some mosaic glass tiles I've had in my stash for a while from the Hobby Lobby. I've also had this wooden piece in my stash. I honestly do not remember where I got it. It might have been sent to me by Plaid a while back, or I may have picked it up. I'm not sure where, but I've had it for a while. Decided I wanted to make a little mini tray, so to speak, something that I can set on a table and put my drinking glass on, or just something to catch the remotes, you know, whatever it may be that normally just lingers on my table when I'm in my family room or whatever. But I had painted it with my Adirondack white chalk paint, and now I'm coating the bottom with a generous coat of Mod Podge. That happens to be a matte Mod Podge, but you could use glossy or whatever type of Mod Podge you want. I am placing these in here one by one because when I took a closer look at them, I realized that there was a smooth surface, and then on the flip side, there was a bumpy surface. So it was almost like there was an actual front and back to these pieces, and so I wanted to make sure that I was putting the rough surface down and leaving the smooth surface facing up. Now, had I had something like spackle in my stash, I probably would have used that instead because it could have served as more like a grout, so to speak. But this was the way that I opted to do it with the supplies that I had on hand. So I'm just smoothing them out a little bit. I did have some Mod Podge coming up in between here and there. And then I just took a brush and I'm going to go over all of it with a little bit more Mod Podge just to help seal them in. And that's really it for this. Just set it aside, let it dry, and I'm excited to try it out. DIY number 2. All right, this is from the Dollar Tree. It is a little cake tray, and then these are also from the Dollar Tree. I see these because they were actually 2 of the glass candlestick holders that I had glued together some time ago with E6000, and yeah, they've just been in my stash for a while because I ended up not using them for the original intended purpose, but we're going to use them today. So I have my little cake tray flipped upside down. I'm actually painting on the bottom of this. I decided I wanted this to be food safe, so I'm not going to put any paint or anything on the top surface, and I'm applying my entire design to the bottom. This is, I think it's called Lilac chalk paint by Home Decor. I'm just using a small flat-headed brush to put a little flower design on there, and I had left a hole in the middle, as you could probably tell, and I'm coming in with my Sunny Porch chalk paint, also by Home Decor, and just dropping a little bit of a yellow center in the middle of each of my flowers. I just wanted to have a pretty design that wasn't going to be super difficult to paint. So that's why I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it. Then once that was dry enough for me to come back in with some fern chalk paint, I decided to come in and make some little leaves around each of my flowers. And so I just continued to work my way around. The first paintbrush that I had was a little bit large, and I found that it was hard to make the leaf pattern, so I did switch it out for a smaller brush, and I ended up being a little bit more successful with the smaller brush. So just going to continue to make my way around with the green. Now, had I had more time, I would have just let everything dry completely in between colors and coats. But I was a little pressed for time to make sure that I got everything done for this video. So I do recommend allowing everything to dry before you continue on with the next color, especially with the next step that I'm going to show you in just a moment. So now I'm using celery chalk paint, and this is going to be basically my background color. And again, I highly recommend just waiting for everything to dry completely before you come in with this. As you can see, I'm just kind of being very delicate with it. I'm putting on a pretty thick layer of paint right now, making sure that I am not brushing, and I know it looks like I'm sweeping my brush across the paint, but I'm really not. I'm more just depositing a rather heavy coat of chalk paint onto it without dragging my brush across the design that's there. I had used my heat gun a little bit to try to get it dry, so the surface of the paint was, it had definitely had a dry film on it. It was definitely not completely dry though, because I had applied it rather thickly. So again, my recommendation would be to just wait for your design to dry completely and then come in with this layer. I'm going a little bit faster around that outer edge because that part was drier than the middle that I originally was working with. So here I was getting it dried a little bit more and somehow managed to lose the footage of me gluing this together, but I used my heat gun to heat up the glass for the area that I was going to attach to this tray, because I didn't want the hot glue to cool too quickly. So I heated up the glass, applied my hot glue, applied it to the tray while it was upside down, and now I'm just cleaning it off. DIY number 3. Okay, I am in my Cricut app. I am going to be using some infusible ink, but I'm going to be using it with HTV Ront product. So they have sent me some mugs and a heat press, and I'm going to show you those in just a second. But I was using my app here just to create a simple design for a mug. Everything that I'm doing here is with free elements, because I no longer have a current subscription with Cricut, so I was just doing everything on the cheap. So this is definitely an option for you if you don't have a Cricut subscription. But if you guys remember my pup Sammy, he is my little love bug. And so I figured I would just do an I Heart Sammy. And then they didn't have any free paw print designs. There was one, but it was kind of more like an outline. And it was, how do I say it? It had kind of jagged lines to it. So I decided to make my own little paw prints. So just did an upside down heart. And now I'm using little ovals to make the little pads for the paw, and putting that together just like so. And then once I had that the way that I wanted it, I went ahead and highlighted all of them and grouped it together. And now I can make it the size that I want it. Then I went ahead and just hit duplicate. So I made a bunch of them and I moved them over to the other side of my little mug design. And ultimately I decided, at first I added a bunch more paw prints, but then ultimately I decided I was just going to try to make a heart shape with the paw prints, and got rid of the extra one that I didn't need. I grouped those together, and then I was able to shrink them down a little bit more and position them where I wanted them. So then I clicked on attach so that everything was going to stay where I wanted it. and made sure that I had the mirroring on. When you use infusible ink, especially if you're using words, you need to make sure that you are mirroring the image because it will end up being backwards otherwise. So this is the infusible ink that I opted to use. At first I thought maybe the leopard print that's inside that tiger print, but then this brown actually looks like Sammy's fur, so I decided I was going to use this. It does have kind of a gradient to it, so I was a little nervous that it would end up being too light on the white mug, but it turned out nicely. I did have a little bit of a gap issue that you'll see. But first, I'm just cutting this down to about a 4-inch strip so that it fits on my mat because I am using my Cricut Joy and just applying this. The infusible ink sheets come in 12 by 12, so I just needed to cut it down for use with the Joy. Then I went ahead and ran it through my Joy, let it get all cut the way that it needed to. And once it was done with cutting, I went ahead and peeled it off. I did learn this tip, I forget from whom, but to just lay it upside down and peel the mat off of the product as opposed to trying to peel the product off of the mat because then you could end up damaging it. But I went ahead and pulled out the cropped part, and then I'm going to pop off all of the pieces that I do not want applied to my mug. So I'm popping out basically the opposite of what you would normally do with vinyl, because those are going to be my white areas. So you'll see how it all comes out. So I'm basically coloring most of the mug, and then my design will be the knockout in white. So here are the sublimation mugs that they sent me. They sent me a pack of 6. These are 12-ounce mugs. So then I got out the tumbler. This is actually a tumbler heat press. So I'm excited to try it with tumblers. I don't actually have any tumblers in my stash, so I'm looking forward to trying that. But it works with the mugs as well. And with at least with the 12-ounce mugs, I'm not sure about 15-inch. I'll have to look into that. But at least with the 12-ounce, not sure about the 15-ounce, but with the 12-ounce mugs, you could actually do 2 mugs at a time. It'll hold 2 mugs or it'll hold a tumbler. I'll have to see if it's large enough to do 2 of the 15-ounce, but you can see here, I'm looking at it, maybe it really would do 2 of the 15. I don't know. I'll have to check it out. But I'm going to go ahead and apply my design to the mug. And I'm not going to lie, I definitely was struggling with it, trying to get it all lined up, trying to make sure that it was on here properly. I did forget to use a lint roller on this. Usually, at least the Cricut folks, I didn't notice this in the instructions for the HTV Ront, but usually Cricut recommends that you use a lint roller just to remove any little pieces of, fuzz or anything that might have gotten on the surface, because it can impact your design. All right, I'm going to stop struggling with this. I ended up putting the mug down on my surface, wrapped it around this way, and that definitely made it easier to line it all up because I had the surface of my table to line it up with and wrap that around. So that definitely was a big help. All right. So now I'm going to get my butcher paper and get this prepared to wrap around it. What that is going to do is protect my machine from any bleeding of the color from the infusible ink. I want to make sure that none of it kind of seeps through and does color damage to my machine. Now I'm taking the heat resistant tape that they sent with this the heat press. So I don't know if you noticed, but it came with the gloves to protect your hands from the heat, and it also came with that roll of the heat resistant tape. So I applied that. Now I've got this turned on, and I am going to get it up to temperature. The mug box said to do these for 120 seconds at 400 degrees. The machine itself appears to only go up to 390 degrees. So I put it up to 390. I did keep messing with it, trying to get it to go higher, but I finally, during my trial and error, determined that it would only go up to 390. So I opted to do it for 150 seconds instead of the 120 seconds. And it worked out just fine. So now I've got my little gloves on to protect my hands because, again, when this comes out of there, it is hot. And I'm just trying to be careful because I know you're supposed to let this cool so you don't end up smudging your design, but I was just careful to peel it right away. So you can see that the design was plenty dark at the bottom, but I did have like a gap issue. I think that was operator error. I don't think it was the machine, but this seems to have worked really well. Now it's time for a shout out timeout. Awesome, Johnny. These are fantastic from the holidays. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And sweet Rose. Rose has been busy. Love these designs. I would love to give you a shout out as well. If you have interest, just send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. All right, so this is actually going to be a 2-for-1, and these are the colors I used. That was a royal purple pearlized, then I've got the pearlized pink, pearlized magenta, lemon yellow, gold, pale green, and ultramarine blue. So I had these all mixed already, and I'm going to be showing you 2 projects that I did with these, but I actually ended up doing 5. So the other 3 I'm going to hold for a future video because I don't want to do too much paint pouring in one video. I know that some people love it. Some people are not such a fan. So I don't want to overwhelm you with a ton of paint pouring, but I absolutely love it. I find it very relaxing. It's amazing the different designs you can get with using the same paints, just based on how you pour them. So I hope you'll stay tuned for next week's video where you'll get to see these same paints being used, but getting a completely different look. So I am just layering them, as you can see, in my larger cup. I am layering these with my Amsterdam white, and these are all mixed with Floetrol. So they are my Arteza acrylic paints mixed with Floetrol. I would say they're probably a 1-to-8 ratio if I had to guess. I've got a lot of Floetrol in here. I really just pretty much eyeballed it to make sure that it was the right consistency and that the pigmentation of the paint hadn't gotten too light. So I'm going to set these up on my little risers. This is a 12-by-12 canvas and then a Dollar Tree vase on a plastic cup. So, and I'm going to be pouring this over the vase and let it flow down over the vase and then also onto the canvas. So that's where the 2-for-1 comes in. So we're going to have a canvas that complements our vase. Now, I was a little nervous about using all of these bold colors, realizing now in hindsight that a lot of them were pearlized, which, you know, it kind of makes them a little bit lighter when they dry. And all of these are semi-opaque, so they're semi-translucent. They're not fully opaque, but I guess that just tends to mean that frequently they'll dry lighter. I'm still learning all of this myself, so take what I say with a grain of salt, because yeah, I'm still learning how all the colors work together. But so yeah, So looking at it right now, I was getting a little nervous. I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out. But I figured, you know what? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. We're going to go for it and see what happens. And I have to say, I was very pleased with the end results. But you can see the different layers of color coming down. And just a reminder that whatever you pour into your cup first, that is what is going to end up on your piece last, right? So I did consciously put the purple in on the bottom because I did want to make sure I had some of that purple coming through on the vase itself. So I'm getting down to the end here, and I was wishing that you could see how cool it actually looked inside my cup after I poured this all out. It was the neatest thing. It looked like a really fun chevron rainbow inside my cup. I am going to try and show you, but the light just wasn't making it into the interior of the cup well enough for you to see it as well as I could see it. But it was kind of a cool thing. I almost wished that there was something I could just dip into that paint to pick up that paint and have that design be on something. But at any rate, I am doing this in real time. A lot of, most of the time I have my videos sped up so that I don't bore you to tears, because I do tend to craft rather slowly. So I do tend to speed things up by 2.5 times. But for the paint pouring, I have decided to leave this in real time so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to allow that to run down for a little bit. Don't mind the background disaster I have of a craft room, but I'm using my cell phone to just kind of show you how the colors are looking as they run down here. So you can see they've gotten much lighter even than what you can see on the canvas. So I'm looking forward to showing you how that turned out. I'm going to go ahead and pull this off the canvas. I'm going to move it to another location to dry, and doing this very carefully. In the meantime, the paint is going to fill in on itself there on the canvas, and then I'm going to be coming back to clean off my hands first of all. There we go. And now we're ready to tilt. I started to tilt and then realized I really wanted to put a pillow of paint around it. So I'm going to grab my Amsterdam white again and just add some paint all the way around the outside. That's just going to help the paint to move as I tilt my canvas here in a second. So got that taken care of, and now we'll be ready to go ahead and start tilting. And at first I didn't really see too much of a design, but it quickly started developing a flower shape in the middle. You can't quite see it just yet, but you will see it in a moment. So I'm going to run the paint down off of the corners, or to the corners, and now I can see that flower shape developing in the middle, and I'm going to be really protective of that. So I'm going to start running some of the paint off of the edges, and I'm going to continue to bring it back to center as I go here so that I can preserve that floral type shape that's in the middle. My husband Rich later said that he saw a butterfly in this. I still see it as a flower more so than a butterfly, but you'll have to let me know in the end what you see in this image. And I don't know why, but these colors, they ended up reminding me of Monet with, I mean, obviously it's a completely different type of painting, but the colors of his lily pads, some of those famous paintings that he has, I don't know, something about the colors, it just made me think of those paintings. So obviously this would be a very abstract version of water lilies, I think maybe is what it was actually called. But yeah, I don't know. I just, as I was doing this, that was kind of what came to mind with the colors that I'm seeing in here. But going to continue to try to keep that design in the middle. I'm also trying not to stretch it too much. Where I saw that I was starting to maybe stretch it out a little bit too much, I opted to to try to bring it back to center a little bit more. And eventually here, I'm going to decide that I don't want to distort it any more than I already have. So I'm going to call that good. And because there is such a thing as too much, right? So, but I'm showing you kind of where I see that really pretty blossom is what I'm going to call it. So now I am using my torch to just pop any of the air bubbles, and gonna go over that a few times. And then I will run my finger over some of the parts of the sides and the corners just to make sure that the canvas is completely covered in those areas as well. So that'll be my next step. Apparently I used my torch quite a bit. I must have seen quite a few air bubbles, but there you go. So I'm just making sure that everything is covered, and that's going to be all there is to this piece. I'm excited for you to see how they dried. Oh, I'm going to flip it and just make sure, because the way that my table is set up, I can't see. It's a little bit higher actually than counter height, so I can't see very easily the backs of the things that I work on unless I flip them around. So I'm just turning this around, making sure that it is on its little risers. I'm going to make sure I get the rest of the corners and the sides. But let me know what you think of these pieces.
Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the projects, please remember to give me a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Let me know which one was your favorite. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thanks so much for watching, and take good care. Bye.